Trump signed a bill that clawed back more than $1 billion that had already been approved for the organization's budget. The law ended a half-century of funding for the corporation, which finances PBS and NPR. Jason Johnson and David Jolly are still here with us. Thank you, guys. So, Jason, is this what Americans asked for? Is this what they wanted? And when and where do we think we're going to start to really feel this loss?
I mean, I think people are feeling.
I think we've lost Jason there. So, David, I'll ask this of you then.
Sure.
You're in Florida. This is a state that has more rural communities and corners that may lose out on quality reporting, but also emergency information. A state that experiences serious storms. What are you worried you might soon see?
Well, look, I do think it's a sad day for the nation and for our culture, and frankly reflects a president who is weak and intimidated by Daniel Tiger. I mean, I'm not sure why they've declared war on culturally relevant, enriching educational programming, because that is essentially what PBS is. But it also fills a critical part in frankly, the wealth gap and the accessibility gap to information and to programming in a day and age where programming is often, you have to pay for it, you have to subscribe for it in some way. PBS, Corporation for Public Broadcasting, and the other platforms provide news, provide educational tools for children, literacy tools for children, culturally relevant, enriching content for individuals and families. And so I'm not sure this attack on public broadcasting is exactly what voters have asked for. And I promise you, look, our two kids are 6 and 4. The benefit of the PBS platform for our kids learning to read and learning basic lessons of civility, learning about diversity, learning about a rich culture, a lot of that comes from the free to consumers PBS platform. Look, I think they're going to anger a lot of people. It's not just Donald Trump, though. Mike Johnson said, promise made, promise kept. Shame on Mike Johnson and Republicans for going along with this.
Yeah, you would think from some of the comments we've heard from people like Speaker Johnson that Americans have been begging for decades for public broadcasting to lose its support, but consistently polling shows that Americans love and appreciate and often depend on these programs. Jason, who are the Americans you're most concerned about?
People who are worried about like local news and weather. Like there's a lot of different things that your local NPR station actually does and provides. And I can say this as somebody who's been on NPR a lot, who has friends and colleagues who are on NPR. And here's the issue that I see. Regardless of how many people complain about this, this is another example of something that Republicans have been broadcasting, no pun intended, for 15 years. Remember, Mitt Romney bragged about the fact that he was going to fire Big Bird, right? So it's not like this is new. So anybody who says this isn't what we voted for, they haven't been paying attention for the last 10 or 15 years. The big concern that I have is that one day, if we are able to remove this regime, and it is a regime, they don't certainly act in any sort of constitutional presidential way that any of our lifetimes have ever seen before, the amount of money and investment and fights that it will take to bring back these kinds of things, NPR, USAID, various jobs have been destroyed by DOGE, will take a massive effort. And I don't know if the current opposition party has the backbone to replace that which has been destroyed by this current regime.
Well, David, I'm curious what you think of those comments about the backbone, but also, I wonder if you see this part of the story as part of the sort of bigger issue of truth and memory in the Trump era. Full circle to our first block, talking about the firing of this commissioner at Bureau of Labor Statistics, and the concern now people on Wall Street and everyday people have about whether we're going to be able to trust, federal data sets. Then you have this news this week that information about the president's impeachment was removed, possibly just temporarily, but at least it's been removed for now from the Smithsonian. And then just days ago, legendary painter Amy Sherald announcing that she's pulling a show she had planned, something that, artists spend their entire lives dreaming of, because she was informed that they wanted to censor one painting in the show, just one painting in the show that happened to depict a transgender person. What does this indicate to you about where we are?
Look, the war on truth and data and science ultimately undermines and destabilizes culture. And that's critically important because culture threads us through various political eras and certainly presidents. And so I think of course, it reflects, if you want to liken it to authoritarianism and the attack on truth to protect a political interest. Sure, we're seeing that, but it also really projects a real weakness by this president and by Republicans who are intimidated by the truth. But I think Jason said something that is so important. The project to rebuild this is not going to happen now in a year or two. Look, my race in Florida, one of the themes is about rebuilding public education. Public education has been under attack in Florida for 20 years, and it is now so depleted, it will take a decade to rebuild. That has to be the rebuild project that Democrats take to voters.
Jason, we have to go to break soon, but I want your thoughts on the true issue of truth and memory in Trump 2.0.
One of the first things that authoritarian regimes do is try and destroy the past. They try and make you forget what happened. They try and make you think that the abuse and the harassment and the oppression that you're living under is how things have always been. The way that this regime would want to operate would be for us to forget these things, and getting rid of something like public radio is just the first step in that process.
Jason, David, so wonderful to talk with you both.
Y'all, this will be the only time I give a trigger warning for